All right, welcome back everybody to another segment of Fishing Academy by Captain Sergio. And you know, basically it's like what I just did with the bait net is I'm not gonna take you out in the water and show you me catching a bunch of grouper and mango snapper in Tampa Bay. There's tons of those videos out there now. What I'm gonna try to cover in the next 10 to 12, maybe 15 minutes is the techniques that we use to catch and to find the fish in Tampa Bay. So first, let's talk about the shipping channel. About 1960, the channel in Tampa Bay was dredged out to 34 feet. And that maintained like that for quite a while. And then, you know, as time came on and everything started to change, cruise ships were gonna start coming in on the 20th century, 21st century. They dredged it out some more. And now the maximum depth, it depends on the area, of the ship's channel is about 48 feet. Almost anywhere. Now when they did this, remember when they dredged this channel out, if you look, all the walls of the channel and the bottom of the channel, it's all been dredged out through lime rock, because Tampa Bay is nothing but one big lime rock now. Why is it you don't see a lot of lime rock? Well, you know, you got grass, you got dirt down there. But when they dredge that ship's channel, remember, what happens is they have to go through and clean out everything. And they actually get down there and rip some of that lime rock out. That gets put on the sides of the ship's channel. So this is why the Tampa Bay ship channel, all the way from Egmont, all the way in to Port Tampa, into the downtown area, is such a good area to fish for mango snapper, for grouper, sea bass, grunts, and nice sharks and some Goliath grouper, quite a few of them. So again, all I'm gonna try to do is just kind of take you a walk and give you an idea what you're looking for. Number one, you know, look on the charts for wrecks. Now, the newer charts show some wrecks. If you can get a hold of these old charts, old Coast Guard charts that are 20, 30, 40 years old, when I go to some of these yard sales and they got fishing tackle, I'll look for old charts. They'll show you some of the wrecks that are no longer listed on these new, you know, charts. Now, I'm sure that the big old Coast Guard charts that they still have will show some of them, but the ones that you normally buy at your tackle store that tells you there's trout and redfish here, well, yeah, they'll show you some wrecks, they'll show you the artificial reefs. But there's about, over the years, there's about 23 wrecks in Tampa Bay. Now some of them have been covered up over the years, but they're there. Just because you see them on a chart, remember that's PA. A lot of times you see a little P and an A next to the wreck, and as you see on the chart right now, on the chart, you'll see what a wreck looks like, and I've got some pictures there for you to look at. So, again, PA means position approximately. Now, I've found a few of these wrecks over the years, and I can tell you, PA means I've found some of these wrecks 3 blocks from where it says it was. So don't give up. Every time you go through an area, if you see there's a wreck, you know, just go over it. Next time, go 10 feet away from it, go 30 feet away from it. It's all about T&M, your time and money to go out and find these things. But if you can find some of these wrecks, let me tell you, they're a gold mine, especially if you find one of those that very few people know about or some people don't even know about. And on the chart, you'll see that there's a couple that I got marked right off of F-cut. There's 2 there that I fish off and on. They're good for grouper, especially this time of the year. As the summer comes on and the weather gets warmer, you'll get a lot of cobia sitting on top of these wrecks because of all the bait that's down there. And of course, you got the problem with Goliath grouper. They do move into these wrecks. But that's one spot you want to look at. So that's wrecks. The other one is don't overlook artificial reefs. There's quite a few. You got a Courtney Campbell, you got one Howard Franklin, you got one Port Tampa, you got Apollo Beach, you've got the one by Ruskin, and then you got the one by Egmont. all these artificial reefs do hold quite a few fish. Now, the problem with that is, they get picked over pretty good as far as the big grouper go, but you get a lot of mangled snapper, you're going to get a lot of Key West grunts, you're going to get a lot of sea bass, and also cobia. Again, in the summer months, cobia like to hang around any structure like that because there's a lot of food source for them. So the second spot I would try to learn is, the artificial reefs. And then, of course, the one that everybody likes is the shipping channel. Now, the shipping channel, what you're not going to try to fish is right in the middle of the channel. Most of the time, I like to find the little ledges to the side of it, on top of the channel. So you got a 48-foot channel, let's say, and it tapers out till about 30 feet. Well, right there sometimes, remember, when they went beyond that 34-foot mark, a lot of that stuff, just the big rocks and stuff got thrown on the side of the channel. So, and you got ledges in there when they were dredging this out. So you want to fish usually the upper part, the drop side of the ship's channel. And if you got some good equipment, we'll talk about that later, you can find it and you can mark it. Now, there's probably 1,000 places to fish in the ship's channel. But again, it's all T&M, your time and your money. You got to go out there, you got to look for it, you got to find some time to find out where they're at. And then the other important thing is your tides. And as far as tides go, you don't want full moon tides because it's really tough. You got too much current unless you fish them at the end of the incoming, the start of the outgoing. I like the nip tides where you have slow moving tides. The fish will get out from the ledges, gets out of the rocks, and they'll get out there and you'll start catching them that way. Also, it's a great time for mangled snapper and those type of species because they don't have to fight the current. But again, tides play an important role. Try to get the days that you go out, the slower moving tides. If you can't, then remember, try to fish the start of an outgoing, the start of an incoming, because you got about 45 minutes to an hour to fish before that tide really starts to rip. And that's one little thing. Now, let's talk a little bit about the tackle. There's all kind of talk out there about the kind of tackle to use, the line and the leader, and we're going to cover that. But if I normally would use, as far as like the rods go and the reels, I'll use I love to use the spinning, and I'll usually go ahead and use a 4 or 5,000. This happens to be a blackfin 5,000 spinning reel. I don't put more than 40 pounds on it. That's the maximum I put on them. I put 30 on the 4,000 and I put 40 on the 5,000. That's all you need. On the 5,000 reels, I'm running a medium heavy spinning rod, and on the 4,000, I'm running a medium spinning rod. And the reason for that is, unless you really think there's some real big fish, I prefer to use spinning for a couple of reasons. Number one is you got lighter line, there's less drag with the current. That means you can use a lighter weight, a lighter sinker on the bottom, which makes it a lot easier to fish. So that's just my preference. Now, what I do a lot of times is I'm fishing with these spinning rods and the reels, but then I will use a conventional. And by the way, I use a braided line on all these spinning rods. And my preference has always been fins. And I'll use that, like I said, I'll use 30 on the 4,000s and 40 on the 5,000. I do use some conventional tackle. And what I do with this sometimes is I put it out the back of the boat, let it sit there with a big pinfish or a big live thread fin. And you'd be surprised, once in a while you get that real big grouper and this is a good way of doing it. I like to use monofilament when I get to this big conventional type reel. And the reason for that is monofilament has a lot of give, where braided doesn't. If I'm holding it in my hand and I feel that bite, I set that hook, bam, I'm fighting the fish. When it's sitting on the rod holder and that fish takes off and he starts going with it, it allows me a couple of things. It allows me to just put the clicker on so I can hear the click. That way the grouper doesn't feel the hook in his mouth right away, and what he does, he kind of gets that, you get that circle hook in his mouth. Then you can set the hook, but when you pull, because he's already hooked so tight, with braided lines sometimes you can have a tendency of actually snapping your leader or ripping the hook out of his mouth. So mono has some stretchability to it. And that's why I like to use 50-pound monofilament line on my conventional reels. But this is the one that's just going to sit on the bottom, and that's it. If you're having a hard time, keeping it the way you want it, actually, there's a product on the market that I like to use a lot that works really good. It's called a Drift Master. I happen to have one right here. And this Drift Master, it's made to go inside your rod holder, but then it holds your conventional rods just perfect. So when that fish hits, the rod's at the right angle, it gives. It's not real high up in the air where you get too much of a bend. And I always keep a couple of these in the boat. They work really good. And for stationary fishing, when you got a couple of rods out, that's perfect. You put these things on the back of the boat, just let them sit there with some big live bait on the bottom, and boy, do they work really good. And the reels, like I said, on the spinners, I'll use a 4,000 with 30. I use the 5,000 with 40. And I do use, don't get me wrong, I do use some 3,000 reels, right there. That's a 3,000 black fin with 15-pound fins braided line, right there. And the reason I like to use these, as you can tell, I got my favorite, my little yellowtail jig is right there, okay? Now, the reason I like this is I love to catch mango snapper. I'm a mango snapper type guy. I really, groupers are fun, and I catch a few and I'm happy. But boy, if I can get into a school of these 15, 18, 20-inch mango snapper in the bay, or some of these 17, 18-inch sea bass, which are, you don't find them in the Gulf anymore because they've been picked apart by the party boats. I really enjoy that. So I always take some 3,000 with 15-pound test. I take 4,000s with 30, and again, the 5,000 with 40. And that takes care of that. Now, when it comes to line, we talked about this a little bit. I like braided line on the spinners, but on the bigger conventional reels, I like monofilament. And one of the things that I overlooked, and I apologize for that, but another great catcher for mango snapper, I love this, it's the bait casters. I mean, I love the bait casters right there, the heavy duty saltwater version. This is a medium rod. I've got it set up with a 2/0 wide gap hook, 1/2-ounce sinker. To me, with a chunk bait, I start chumming out the back of the boat. This is one of my favorite rods to catch fish on. And because it's a bait caster, I've got 30-pound test on it. So if I do happen to get a decent-sized grouper, I can bring them up, but I can bring up some of those big mango snapper, Zacobia, everything else. So I do like the bait casters. And in my boat, you'll see, I take a couple of 5,000s, a couple of 4,000s, about 3,000s, and the bait caster, and then one or two of the big conventional reels. Now, it seems like a lot of tackle, but it's not, because it depends on what's going on. Some days the bite is on smaller fish, some days it's on bigger fish, so you want to have the right tackle. And as far as leader goes, Folks, I've been preaching this for years, okay? And somebody's going to argue with me, and that's fine. I'm glad there's people out there that don't have the same view. But once I get past 30-pound test leader, especially fishing in the bay, in the ship's channel, the reefs and places like that, I use a good grade of monofilament. You can get a good grade of clear premium monofilament for about 80% less. I mean, this stuff is, as far as I'm concerned, when you're talking about the 40 to 50-pound test leader, you don't need anything any heavy, any fluorocarbon. Why pay that kind of money? Do you really think that a grouper is going to come up to your hook with a chunk of bait that's about 2 or 3 inches, or a bait that's 3 or 4 inches in size with a 5-aught hook in it? You think he's going to look at the leader and say, oh, something's wrong with the leader? No, it's not. All right. Now, when I'm fishing inside the bay, definitely. For trout, redfish, and snook, I go down as low as 15 for trout in the winter. I use 25 on the average, 30 sometimes when I'm around heavier structure and there's bigger snook. But above that, I have not found where a good grade 40-pound or 50-pound monofilament line hasn't done the job as well as any fluorocarbon out there at 80% cheaper. So that's going to cover the leaders. Now let's talk a little bit about the sinkers. There's different sinkers, different ways to do it. This is a short version of it, but this is one of my rigs that I like to use. Now, remember, this is just for show. Usually my leaders are going to be about 30 foot long, and I'll have 2 hooks hanging from it with an egg sinker on the bottom. What it does is once it hits the bottom, I can keep it this way. I've got 2 baits. The hooks are going to be spaced about 10 inches apart. You got about a 3-foot leader, so I keep it about a foot from the sinker. I put my first hook. I make another rig about another 10, 12 inches above that. And then it goes, the rest is leader. This works very good when there's a bunch of other fish around and you're trying to get the grouper started. You've got 2 baits down there. You're going to get these mango snapper. You're going to get some of the trash fish, and they start pecking on it. It creates that boom, 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 boom action that's going to bring the grouper to see what's going on. So this is very good. And to me, it works excellent, this rig. And of course, the other one, it's the old conventional. And it's very simple. It's just an egg sinker sitting on top of your hook. Just like this, right there. Now, if you notice, I've got a bead on there. And the reason for that bead, I really believe in these things. I use them for sheephead fishing and everything else. That sinker coming up and down on top of that hook starts to wear on that knot, and you can lose some fish. By putting that little bead on there, that sinker hits that bead first, and it doesn't tear up your leader. Plus, I don't know why, maybe the color, I like green, and there's a fluorescent yellowish color. Those two, they seem to attract the grouper a little more than not using it. And here again, it's just, preference. Now, what we're going to do for bait? Well, let's talk about live bait first. The best baits to use, as far as I'm concerned, is, again, it's what you're going after. If you strictly just want grouper, yeah. But if you want to get a mixture of a little bit of everything, I always start off with a greenback, greenback sardine. You've seen this. That's ones you catch on the flats all the time, especially if you can get them in about 3 inches to 4 inches. They're perfect for sea bass, mango snapper, grunts, flounder, because there's a lot of flounder sometimes along the edges of the ship channel. And it's a great bait. Plus, it's a great bait to chop up and use for chum. You can cut it up into small pieces, slowly let the current take it behind the boat. You can bring the grouper up to the surface by doing this. Then my real good choice for grouper is the thread fin sardine right there. And the reason for that is it's a stinky bait. It doesn't live as long or as well as a greenback does, but you can get them in about 5-6 inches around the range markers. And let me tell you, they do make a great bait, whether they're live or whether it's dead on the bottom. If you're going to use them as dead, you can cut a big one into 2 chunks and just let it sit on the bottom, and you'll be surprised how the grouper will come up and hit it. One of the killer baits for me that a lot of people don't use, but I use it whole, I love to use Spanish sardines right there. See that little Spanish sardine? Man, let me tell you, you put that sucker, put the hook right through the nose, break the tail off, let it ooze out a little bit. You buy these frozen in 5-pound boxes. When the bite is slow, I'll pull out some Spanish sardines, and let me tell you, it does make a difference. And last but not least, for the real biggies, and especially when the bite might be slow, the old standby, Mr. Pinfish. I like them maybe about a 3-inch to 4-inch pinfish is ideal for Tampa Bay as far as I'm concerned. If you get a bunch in their like silver dollar size in your net when you're catching the bait, wow, those are killer on mango snapper. So you're talking about a good mango snapper bait, about silver dollar size pinfish are killer on the mango snapper. And the big ones, they're killer for grouper. So now we kind of covered that. That's the baits that I like to use. You might have something else, but that's one of my favorites. Then we're going to go into artificial baits. Now, the history of Tampa Bay Channel, when I first started as a young captain years ago and just fishing the channel, in those days we didn't have all the fancy plugs and all that. So we usually use a number 2 planer or a number 4 planer with about 40 feet of mono behind it, and put the old 7-inch Rebel plug and just pull it along the ship's channel, along the top of the edge, on the side of the drop-off, and we would catch grouper that way. But over the years, things change, technology changes. Now, I'm telling you, if you get into a spot where you're starting to get some grouper bite, you're using bait, there's some of these new products out there that are unreal. Don't ask me. Here's 2 of them. Right there. I mean, come in a couple of different sizes. You can get them anywhere from 1 ounce to 4 ounces. And what you can do is you can just get there and start jigging this while everybody else is fishing. Just put it down there, just jig it. Get it about 1 foot off the bottom, up and down. And for some reason, they really go after this pretty good. They really like it. The other one that I like a lot is the old jig head with a swiggly tail. These things are killers. You get you anywhere between a 1 ounce to a 4 ounce jig head. There's one right there. And you put the tail on it, and the same thing, get it down to the bottom, just about the length of a rod, up and down, up and down. A lot of times when the bite is slow, it's either aggravation or just something, because there's something there just keeps doing this that gets the grouper going. So if you get into an area where you're catching a few fish but the bite's real slow or the current gets a little strong, try using these artificial baits. They work really, really good. And now we're going to get to kind of like the nitty-gritty of everything is electronics. You know, technology, again, it's wonderful. When I was a little kid, it used to be Loran A. Then Loran C came along. And then came, you know, your GPS system. They're all going to help you find locations. Once you find them, get back to them. But to find the spot, to mark it on your GPS, you need a good depth finder with a good size scan. And there's a lot of them on the market. Now, what do I prefer? Right now, my preference, my personal preference, is either going to be Lowrance or Simrad. And you might say, Captain, I've got a Garmin, it's terrific. Or I've got a Humminbird, it's terrific. Or I've got a Raymarine, it's terrific. You're right. I said, all the units are good, except one little thing. Garmin is proprietary. Raymarine's proprietary. Hummingbird's proprietary. What does that mean to you? That means that when you buy one of those units, you got to use whatever software they make. You cannot use a third-party software. And when you're talking about Lowrance and Simrad, there's so many different software out there that can make your fishing so easy, but you can't use it. For example, inside Tampa Bay, I've been using for years Strikeline. The chip, you get it gets updated every couple of years. Man, you put that chip in there, you're going over the ship's channel, you can see on your chart where all the ledges and everything is at. So you're looking at that on one side. Now you can find it with your size scan and your sonar. That's the only big difference. And believe me, it's not just about finding grouper and stuff like that in the ship's channel. On my smaller boat that I use for the other TV show on the Beaver Tail, I go into places that I've never been before. And I've got to run through places I never run through before, outside my market area. Well, in that boat, I use Florida Marine tracks all the time. It has saved me probably, over the last 5 years, saved me at least 3 lure units that I know of. And it saved me a lot of time and fuel being able to get between one place and the other, running through the shallows, because that software tells me what I can and can't do. I can use it on my Simrad, I can use it on my Lowrance. I can't use it on Garmin. And actually, Garmin and Humminbird aren't bad units. Those are the two. If I couldn't get a Lowrance or Simrad, I would probably go Garmin. Humminbird would be one of the other two choices. And they're both good units, but I can't put this software in it. It won't let me run it. So if I can't run it, it doesn't do me any good. And the final results, as you can see, I'm going to show you some pictures of some of the Tampa Bay grouper, some of the mangle snapper that we caught. If you have any questions, you want to know anything, you can go to realfishy.com and get a hold of me. Ask me any questions you want, and I'll be more than glad to answer them for you. Or send me an email at Atanes, ATANES, at MSN.com. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. I hope you learned something. We're going to keep doing this for you. And please don't forget, watch our Fishing Adventures Florida show on YouTube and Waypoint Carbon TV, Angling TV, and also watch Captain Sergio's Fishing Chronicles on YouTube. That's strictly real skinny water fishing.